Welcome to the E-Free Lethbridge podcast. It's so great that you're joining us. We have a great packed episode. We've got the boys today. It's
the boys.
Just us guys. Glenda is not available. She's taking a class, and so she said she's a little busy. So I thought, yeah, we're just going to fill it with boys and see how it goes. We needed the Glenda to rein us back in sometimes, though. So we'll see.
True. Ask probing questions. Yes.
Yeah. Joining us, we have the service pastor for the 6 o'clock service, which is currently not happening right now, but we got the podcast instead. So it's a good thing you're here. We've got the young at heart, Luke Watson.
Hello, everybody. Greetings. Go Raptors, go.
Go Raps, go.
We the North.
We the North.
We've got the head honcho, our lead pastor, Jeff.
Hey, everybody. Good to see you.
Just so you know, Jeff, so if I call you with our work system, which is called Teams, at the end of the message, after you don't pick up, which seems to happen to me, when you don't pick up, it goes to voicemail, and it says, you're trying to reach Jeff Haith.
Nice.
Every single time. Jeff
Haith. Rhymes with faith.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, Siri says Jeff Hate, so that's even worse.
I don't know. How does that? Yeah. Doesn't make any sense.
Heth rhymes with Beth. And I guess also death. And I tried to make it rhyme with breath when I was rapping. So
yes, we will get that rap
together. Siri, come on.
We also have the light-hearted Jeremy Light.
Hey, everybody. It's good to be with you.
And I am your host, Levi, and we're going to kick things off with a fun morning question. So today's fun morning question: have you ever been told you look like someone famous? And who was it? Who's your celebrity doppelganger?
Okay, so I've been told a couple times from different people. I don't agree with this, but Luke Wilson.
Yeah, I can see it.
Wilson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know who he is? Kev?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know who he is.
That's the left uniform, right?
Yes. Just yeah.
I actually know quite a bit of pop culture.
That's true.
I'm up on it, man.
This is the less famous Wilson.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Yeah.
He has I feel like I have a bigger nose than him. But
Okay.
yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah, man.
Well, here we go.
Got here.
There he is. Very nicely.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, good old Luke Wilson.
I feel like I've seen that kind of vacant stare before, Luke.
That's true. Hey. Oh, that's good. Oh, Luke Wilson.
Yeah, that's good.
Who do you got, Jeff?
I got back when I had hair and it was a little bit darker than it was. There was a show in the 90s called The Pretender. And the main guy on it was Michael T. Weiss, known as Jared on the show. And he would go around pretending to be different occupations and would always save somebody in the end. So everybody at the church, actually down in Kenosha, which I mentioned today in the podcast, would call me Jared. So the Pretender. And I was pretending to be a pastor, I guess, down there.
Oh, yeah. That looks like you, buddy. Look at that first picture on Google search.
Yeah, man. Got to draw the stash.
The one on the far right, actually. Yeah. Like that would be what Jared looked like, hey? Back in
the day. Yeah.
The Pretender, yeah, there it is.
I have I think I have 2 or 3 seasons of The Pretender on DVD.
Really?
It was a fun show.
On DVD. Not even VHS, DVD.
DVD, yep. Yeah.
Yep. We used to set the VCR to record the show, man.
Yes,
Back
totally.
in the day.
Back in the old original DVR. You wanted to make sure you didn't record over something. Oh yeah, it was such a mess. It was great.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, it was always a risk. I've been told I look like Jeff Heff.
Yeah, for sure, man.
Levi, look him up.
Yeah, look him up.
I'm a little bit worried if I look him up.
That's true.
But,
Fine.
but
Yeah,
look at that.
oh, look, there's a picture of Myron there
A
too.
little bit weird.
Like, look at the one in the black with the black background right on the top there. Like, you don't know if that's me or Jeff right there.
Yeah, that's good.
Hey, my dad's on there too, man. Sweet.
I've had people in the lobby talking to me, and I realize they think they're talking to Jeff, and then they realize it partway through the conversation.
Yeah.
And it's just fun to watch the look in their eyes as they're like, "Oh no, what have I done?" It's great. When I was younger, I've had people tell me that I look like Brendan Fraser.
Brendan Fraser.
Yeah, Brendan Fraser.
Did you have hair? Like long?
No, like from his school ties day.
Oh, okay. Not Encino Man.
Not so much. No, George of the Jungle. Wasn't he George of the Jungle?
Oh, I thought he was Encino Man. That might be somebody else.
I don't know who was Encino Man. That's a good question. Yeah.
Oh man, I feel like I can't beat some of these, but and I don't know, Jeremy. That's a little bit. You did a little bit of a cop out here because I said someone who's famous.
Yeah, well, Brendan Fraser.
Come on, I'm famous.
And Jeff Heff is pretty well known. Yeah.
Local fame.
Yeah, that's right.
Local.
I asked my son one time. I said, I'm the pastor of the church in Calgary. Am I famous? And he said, Dad, you're kind of famous.
Kind of. Seems like everyone knows you when you're walking around. So
yeah.
Mine is, so this one's gonna be hard for you guys to actually see, I think. But before I came to Lethbridge, I had quite a amount of hair, like very curly, kind of wavy, went to the side. Yeah, had lots of hair. And when I was in Hong Kong teaching, a lot of my students, and I shaved, clear face, basically asked if I was related to Harry Styles. So I'm going to throw up a young picture of, let's look
Harry
up
Styles.
young Harry Styles, maybe. Because he's got really long hair, but like basically, which is kind of embarrassing, but like the first two pictures, but it got to a weird point in Hong Kong where I was like coming off the bus, like we had a bus that would charter classes, and when I was coming off the bus, there would be people standing on the overpass taking pictures with signs. So
nice.
Yeah, it was a little crazy, and my team absolutely hated it. And they thought that I was just loving it, like I was leaving it. And they're like, "Oh, Levi, like this is so ridiculous. Like, you yeah." So, a young Harry Styles. I also, when I was in Pakistan, I had someone yell at me that I was Harry Potter. With the hair. So, I don't know.
Probably they only saw a pirated copy of.
Yeah.
That's probably true.
Yeah.
The steady cam in the movie theater taking the.
That's exactly right. I can see Harry Styles though, man. You get the flow like that.
Yeah, Levi had flow. Yeah. Didn't you have the flow when you moved here, Levi, or no? I thought you did.
I don't think so. Like I still had the shaved sides, but my COVID hair right now, I still haven't gone to get a haircut from like an actual place since January. So I've just had like my wife. So my hair is actually quite long, but it's
nice,
like if you go see me, like I think I was hosting last week at church. So if you go back to that, and you just take that hair and you put it on the other side too, then you would kind of get my hair and shave this and maybe make me a little bit more of a baby. But
Man, bring it back, Levi.
Yeah, man. Can you sing the best song ever?
Yeah, the best song ever. I'm not going to sing it now.
Why not, man?
Because I don't do the whole like.
Everybody say, oh, hey.
Keep going.
The best song ever, isn't it?
What song is that? What are you talking about?
It's the best song ever. One Direction, man. One D.
This is great because now Luke is asking Jeff about pop culture.
Yeah,
I'm chirping him.
I
know who Luke Wilson is. Yeah, you know who One Direction is. Come on,
I will give Jeff the win on the pop culture. He knows more than me about pop culture.
Luke's wondering if One Direction sings country.
Okay, well, I think we need to cut things off there. It's time to get to the message. So this week we had Pastor Jeff preaching. It's good to have you back. You were on holidays for a little bit there, and we were missing out on your preaching. And so you were speaking on the Good Samaritan, found in Luke chapter 10, where a man is beaten, left for dead on the side of the road, and two different men end up kind of crossing the road, walking on the other side, and leaving him. And then the Good Samaritan ends up coming and noticing him and taking care of him. And he doesn't just take care of him, but he sees it to the end, make sure that he is provided for and cared for. And you pushed us to think about how this is a good representation of how we can love our neighbor, but also into our neighborhood. And so first, I would just want to start off maybe on a little bit more of a funny note. What are your thoughts, guys, on Jeff's rap from when he was 14 years old?
Yes. I was sort of hoping that there'd be more. I was, and I was hoping he'd get into the rhythm a little bit more. Like, he just kind of gave us the lyrics, but I was hoping for a bit more of a rap. And I happen to know that was not the end of your rap career.
No, unfortunately, it has been salvaged on social media.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I've seen that pop up a few times. So have my kids, to their chagrin.
I hope it comes back onto Facebook.
Indeed.
Man, that's right.
Oh, man. I thought it was good. I was pleasantly surprised at your ability to rap when you were 14 years old.
To spit some bars?
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah.
Nice. We had a little walk at a time.
But no, you had some good rhyming in there. It was actually it flowed really nice. So
it was flowing, Jeff.
Yeah, it was old school. Yeah.
Yeah.
Jeff, who's your inspiration when you're 14 to rap like that?
Yeah, that's back in the day. That's even before DC Talk. So I mean, I mean, as far as Christian guys, this is like Sugar Hill. No, they're not Christian, but it's like the early rap. Ice-T, those guys there. I didn't listen to Ice-T much, too much questionable lyrics, but there was a Christian rapper named Stephen Wiley, who would have been who I would have followed after him, his protege.
That's good. This is gold. Right. There you go.
Yeah, man.
Look those guys up, man.
Isn't that the tech guy's name at SABC?
Yeah, Stephen Wiley. Isn't that Levi?
Yeah.
I
was the rapper.
The video communications person from SABC.
Yeah.
I didn't know that he was also a rapper. So
yeah. He looks good for his age.
That's awesome. So, Jeff, you shared a story about how a mom asked her son what the story means. I'm paraphrasing a little bit here, but he replied that there are people who help us when we're in need, basically, which wasn't exactly the point of the story, but nonetheless, the boy put himself in the shoes of the person who was beat up on the side of the street. So my question for you guys, what character would you guys most relate to in this parable? and why?
Yeah, I think I often relate to that, to the, as I mentioned in a couple of the stories there, the guy who is so busy, he misses it and he walks on by, or there's a fear to engage, you know? And so, I mean, obviously for the priest and then the Levite, the helper in the temple there, they walk on by, just because they're too busy, they're scared to engage, and too many times that's me. I'm too busy. I got my schedule is crammed full. I can't stop and help my neighbor or stop and chat with somebody because I just got my schedule too crammed full.
Do you think the fear piece, Jeff? Like for me, it's not always that I'm going to be beat up or whatever, but that I could be taken in some way, right? Like that this could be like I could look foolish, or that this is going to take a ton of time, and which is sort of the busyness. But I also there's I'm just unwilling to invest the time in it as well. So like I'm afraid of how much time this will take.
Yeah.
So I definitely can relate to the the priest or whatever in the story. But as I was thinking about it today, I was I think I also relate to the innkeeper. I'm willing to help if I'm part of the team, or not necessarily to initiate. Right? If you go find the people, I'm totally willing to help, but I'm not necessarily going out to going out of my way to find people to help.
Yeah, man. As long as somebody pays you, you're good to go.
Yeah. There's still some risk, right? That the Samaritan won't show up.
I'm still getting my money. I'm good.
Yeah. You know what? Just feel free to chirp me. That's totally good.
No, that's a good picture. It's not the one going out of the. Yeah, that's good.
Yep.
I like how you're saying too, Jared, about the cost. I think that, like, I would have been with Jeff too on the Levite and the priest that walks by, but I like how you said that with the cost. Like, this is going to take a lot of time. I think even now too, I think sometimes it's weird, but sometimes it's almost like, it's just too complicated.
Yeah.
Am I going to do more harm? Am I going to, being president? I think we've often, that's another thing that I think comes into my mind too. Like sometimes I just need to give the guy some money. People are like, wow, that's not going to really help him. And it's like, I don't know, maybe we're just overcomplicating that. But anyways,
well,
definitely.
I can appreciate that, Luke, because there's actually I mean, yes, right? Like, are we enabling and then all those things? It feels like it's really complicated today. A concrete example of that is actually, like, Jeff, you used the example of the churches in Kenosha going down and painting symbols of love and messages of love and unity and things like that. And when we were talking about it, not on air in the live stream, but somebody mentioned that they'd heard that story, but from the other side, where this was actually seen as a negative, trying to whitewash the Black Lives Matter messaging. And so,
it's a great example of that, Jerry.
I don't think that's what those churches are trying to do, but when we get involved, it's messy, and that's sometimes we're afraid of the complication of it all.
Yeah, I'm now on this side or whatever. Yeah,
totally.
Wow. I feel like legit probably one of the people who would walk by. It's hard to say that, because of course I think deep down I do have a spirit of wanting to help. And I've seen that in my own life before, but I just think we live in a city where this is legit something that has happened to me or can happen, that there is someone who's beaten up naked on the side of the road. And what are you going to do? This legit happened to me at Galt Gardens. And I literally was too freaked out by the situation. And I yelled to hey, are you okay? No response. And then I thought, I don't know. I don't know what to do. Like, so then I just kept going. And that's, yeah, I'm not saying that that's right, but I think that should inspire us to be the Samaritan in this. I think there's also this feeling of there's people who are doing this work, so I don't need to.
Right.
And that's just not the case. So anyway, honest time with Levi.
Yeah, I think we've all been there, Levi, for sure.
Yeah, this one, this message today really just stirred that up. I'm like, oh man, I've been in this situation in Lethbridge. Yeah. This isn't something that just happened a long time ago. Yeah. So, a question that you kind of tackled, Jeff, in the message today was, who is my neighbor? These are people came to Jesus asking this exact question, and they wanted to know if, basically in their minds, they meant, oh yeah, my neighbor is my physical next door neighbor type of thing, and they were forgetting everyone else. But I think the same question today is something that we're struggling with when we flip-flopped. We're now on the full other end. We're like, oh yeah, everyone is my neighbor. We're forgetting our physical neighbor. But when we think that way, we're also just forgetting, we're like, yeah, we just love all of our neighbors, but we're really not caring for them. We're just being kind in our words. So who is my neighbor?
Yeah, I think for me, I am convicted again or reminded of the importance of physical location. So where does God have me? And when Christine and I bought this house, one of the things that we were aware of and conscious of is that that we will be placed there for a purpose. And so that the location has purpose. And so we're trying to look at what does this mean for the people that physically live in proximity to me. Because I think, Levi, you're right in the sense, once we kind of it's almost like we dilute it to say oh, we love everybody. That means that we don't love anybody specifically. Yeah. We just kind of love everybody generally. And I even when we were talking about the cost piece in the previous question, when we relate to somebody in the parable, I think when Jeff talked about engaging and then the cost piece of engaging with your neighbor, I was thinking about the cost piece as kind of the ultimate, sacrificial cost. But as I was thinking about it throughout the day, it's actually the engagement piece for me that I really need to struggle with. So I can give money to a cause, and kind of, I'll even give money to people on the street if they ask for it. But it's basically trading. We're making a transaction. If I give you money, I won't have to engage. Mm-hmm. And I'm just being convicted that part of being a neighbor is engaging. So yeah.
Jared, I think that's where you pulled out the innkeeper piece, man. I just think that's brilliant, because you could keep things at an arm's length and you could stay safe and you could still have the feeling of I'm helping out. Yeah, and I think that is what's paralyzing our culture today. What's paralyzing me today is that we're not getting proximate to our neighbors, and we're not actually engaging right where God has us. And I think Myron said it, but the neighborhood is now the mission field. You don't need to go across the ocean anymore to see people and engage with people who are different than you. And so that just convicts me and reminds me, it's right here in Lethbridge. So not only my neighbors here, but also downtown as well. We not only have a call globally, we have a call to our literal neighbor, but also those in our city too, I think. Just to get close to.
Yeah, and the reality is, and I made this apart, and it might not have been as effective as it needs to be, but in our day and age, people are so self-sustaining, so independent. We can support ourselves on our own and have the facade that we don't have any need. And so the only time you get to understand somebody's real needs, their deep needs, their hurts, is when you enter into their life. And so if you don't know your neighbors' names, well, you're not, those people that are close to you there, you're probably not going to see any need in their lives. If you don't, get to know their story a little bit, until you do that, you're not going to see need in their lives, because most of the time where we're living, there's the facade that everything is okay. And you really have to get to know somebody. And that's where proximity becomes a great thing. And so, yeah, if you see a need, meet it. But sometimes you're going to have to dig for it a little more, in that you have to get to know some people. And that's going to be engaging in people's lives, as Jeremy said.
That's so good.
I almost feel like it's more challenging at times. Let me run with this a bit, because I think now we're engaging with people where we live, right? And that's going to cost us more. I think, going on plenty of short-term mission trips, it's easy to get uncomfortable and go talk to random people when you're on a short-term mission trip, for me. And I get that's uncomfortable for a lot of people. But all of a sudden, when you bring it to the home front, there's a whole different cost to it, I think, Jeff, when you talked about cost. And we see this, right? We see this today, where people will love to go across the world to do missions and pray for people. But once you start talking about that in Lethbridge, that's a whole different ballgame. Yeah. And I'm guilty of that myself.
Yep. Yeah, because what happens if you get into a relationship with somebody who's really super needy, Man, that
you can't leave.
Well, and these people know you. They get to see you 365.
Right.
And so when you do a short-term missions trip or something like that, even like the couple month-long stints that I've done in Asia,
right,
it's easy to do a 2-month live the best life that you can live to show people. When your neighbor sees you going, and my family, because it drives me absolutely crazy, they're seeing that. They're seeing the whole picture. And so it takes more. There's way more sacrifice with this.
Yeah.
Levi, my neighbor came over. It's funny you say that. I was throwing a garbage can, smashed a hockey stick in my garage. And this guy knows I'm a pastor at the church. He comes over. He thought somebody was breaking into the garage, and it's just me losing my mind. Oh, man.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
Definitely true. So there was a part where we got to spend some time in prayer and asking God, who do you want me to engage with? I believe that was the wording. What did you guys hear in that time? This is a good question, because it's leading us into our next series on prayer. And I wanted to ask some prayer questions, to get the conversation kind of rolling on some of the questions that might be coming up in future podcasts about prayer and what God's been speaking to us. So when you guys prayed, what was God speaking to you?
For me, Levi, there was just a couple people in my life that, I just needed to come around to, I guess. I'm always surprised when the Lord, when I get prompted with questions like this of like, who's somebody you pray for? Because you think it's people like, oh, maybe there's somebody that you see often. But this time it's actually just somebody I haven't talked to in a few months that I just need to bring something around to. So that was mine. And then actually a couple family members too, which was, just a good prompt.
I didn't get specific people. Sorry, Jeff.
No,
I didn't get specific people's names come to mind, but just again, this sense of like, I put you in a place. And I think sometimes, we're very connected globally, but again, it was just this strong reminder. I put you in a place, a specific location. And so just to be thinking about the people on my street, for sure.
Yeah, and for me, it was my one of my neighbors. His name just came so loud, so clear to me today as I was praying and just praying for him. And then just saw we're planning our party here, trying to get it together coming up, and just saw a couple of the houses that God just wanted me to pray over in that time for, that they would be a part of this.
For me, I got two different things. One of them was, I feel like this type of thing with my physical neighbors, I was that person I was the love everyone, be kind, like that was my neighbors. But now I'm wrestling with the physical neighbors and what does it mean to actually love the people that are right next door and on the other side. And so I've taken the step of getting to learn their names and to talk with them as much as possible when I see them on the back deck or like that kind of stuff. But I just got I know it's going to sound more or bad, but do more. Like keep going. Like, yes, you made a sacrifice. Now you can keep going. Like you got more to do here, which is like, oh, okay. But the other thing was just that I'm in a situation which I'm looking at as a lose-lose. And I just felt like God just kept saying, like, trust me, like with this situation with my neighbor having to do with garbage in our back alley, and a very unfortunate situation where garbage ended up on his property and it got eaten by an animal and diapers were kind of coming out of it, which clearly then you would think is from my house.
Yeah.
And it wasn't. And in hindsight, I should have just gone and cleaned it up right away, like going, oh man, he might think this. Anyways, it was moved to my property and no problem. I cleaned it up, but now I want to make sure my neighbor knows it wasn't me. I want to say to him, well, you put the garbage on, like, you know what I mean? So it's like, I have to really tread lightly on the situation. So I've been spending time with God, just going, how can I do this where I let my neighbor know that I'm not mad and I want them to know that I would never do anything to their property, basically.
Yeah.
So I think this is a common thing for people. Like,
Yeah.
How do we walk life situations out?
Yep.
And
that's so good. I mean, and our gut or our natural instinct is not to do anything about it because it's kind of awkward. But like I've done things to my neighbors that are actually stupid, and everybody's known it. And really, the weird countercultural thing to do that God has prompted me to do, and it feels stupid when I'm doing it, but it's just to go over and ask for the neighbor's forgiveness, and that has done so much more to build a gospel bridge than anything else. In your situation, you didn't do anything wrong, but just going over and apologizing for it and explaining the situation and saying, I'm happy to clean that up anytime. I think that's going to remove, not only is it going to sort of diffuse the situation, it's going to elevate the gospel in the mind of your neighbor, and just being that sort of humble, willing to serve. That's going to go a long ways in the relationship.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Yeah.
So Jeff, you mentioned that this takes sacrifice. In the message, you talked about how this takes sacrifice. What do you guys what do you mean by this? What is the cost of living this way? What have you guys had to sacrifice in order to live this kind of relational good Samaritan lifestyle?
Yeah, I just mentioned that one right there. Like, to be a good neighbor, you got to humble yourself pretty regularly and apologize for things or whatever, that sort of thing. Take things on you that maybe aren't yours. I've done that in the past, and that's been, that's cost. Sometimes it's humiliating to do that. But I mean, financial resources, certainly The biggest one for me, like financial resources, when our neighbors have financial need, that is something that Janelle and I just love to engage with. So that's kind of easier for us. The one that is hard for me and really costs me is when it's time. When I see my neighbor shoveling a bunch of dirt or rocks or whatever, and it's sermon prep day, and I need to get this done, and God's like, nope, you don't. You need to go help that guy shovel. And I'm like, all right, yeah, I'm going to do that. I'm going to go shovel. Yeah.
I thought about that question, Levi, a little bit too, and those are good practical, Jeff. And I think, I mean, just reading this story, you see that this actually cost this man something, and I'm glad you brought that out, Jeff, because I think, I don't know, I think today, I think with the karma idea, we kind of get, told like, if you put other people ahead of yourself, it's actually going to benefit you in the long run anyways. Like, that's a good way to live. But like, that's not what the Bible says, right? Like, Ravi Zacharias said it one time, and I can't even quote him now. It's shameful. But he just said, what do you do for people who can't help you back or give back? That's going to be the marker of how you live out your Christian faith. Maybe you guys could help me with that quote on what Ravi said there. It just sticks out to me here.
Well, Jesus also said it too.
No, it was Ravi. It was Ravi.
He might have been quoting Jesus.
Oh, that's good.
Oh, that's awesome.
You're just reading the Bible. But I don't know, like bringing somebody into your home and stuff. Like there's examples of this, like bringing somebody into your house where that can't pay you back or give you anything back for it. These things, it costs your time, man. And that spoke to me today, Jeff. That challenged me today.
I think comfort as well, right, is part of so time, comfort. I mean, they're all kind of related. The other thing, I every time I speak, every time, that might be a little exaggeration, but often when I speak about serving somebody else as a way of showing love, there's a member of our congregation who comes and reminds me that sometimes the best thing we can do is actually ask somebody for help and let them serve us. And and he's right. I need that reminder all the time because it puts me in the position of vulnerability, and it actually helps create this environment where it's okay to ask for help. So I'm not always the savior. Sometimes I'm the person that needs saving. I need Jeff to come shovel. I need or whatever, right? And so I think sometimes we're afraid of being seen as needy, and a nuisance to people. But that can also help open doors of conversation when we're willing to take that kind of low position in our neighborhood. Is you know what, I need help. So that's always a good reminder for me.
Yeah, that's huge. And when you're willing to risk asking for help, they are more likely to do it as well. I remember one time, this story might get me in trouble if any of my kids are listening to me. I won't specify which kid it was, but Janelle and I went away on a vacation, and all of a sudden I get like 3 calls in a row from my neighbor down the street, and this guy who doesn't know Christ, and he was a big party animal when he was a teenager. And so he's like, I call him back, he's like, hey Jeff, there's like a lot of cars around your house and a lot of teenagers are starting to show up there, and I think something's going on. I'm like, I don't think so, but can you go check it out for me? So he goes and checks it out, and it turns out, yes, one of my teenagers got themselves, I won't specify gender, in a bit of a situation where they invited over a few friends, and their friends invited friends, and all of a sudden in my house turned into a party central. And so just him going in and being able to see that, my kids are like this, and he's able to go in and break that whole thing up going on there. That really, that I said, man, thank you so much for helping me with that. And that was just a huge, sort of builder of our relationship and our friendship.
Yeah.
I love how he broke up the party, Jeff.
Yeah, man.
Break that up, man.
Well, I think that is going to conclude our time of getting to the message. It's time to move to the hot seat. The hot seat is a time for you to ask us questions. You can ask us whatever you would like. It's even better if it does relate to the message, but you can also ask us anything about even how our week is going, to stuff about the church, and we try our best to answer it. If you'd like to ask a question, you can do that anonymously by going to minty.com using the code 521917-1. Again, it keeps getting longer each week. It gets longer and longer. Jeremy's out for some reason. He's gone. But when he talks
on the hot seat,
he doesn't want to be on the hot seat, I guess. Yeah, 521917-1. I've got one question here that came in. It says, at times, does the cost seem too big, the cost to follow?
Yeah, I mean, I think it doesn't. I think it doesn't cost unless you feel like it's too big, And I mean, there are times where it seems like it costs too much. My experience when I've done that has been when I step out and take a risk like that, where it seems to cost too much, God always shows up and makes this worth it. And I just, it's like one of those times you set down an anchor in your life. God has to show up to help me in this way, or I'm not going to make it. And you look back on that and go, man, that was great. That was so worth it because, I submitted my life to God in this way.
Yeah, definitely. I don't have any questions from this week, but a couple of weeks ago, we had a question that went unanswered. And so I would like to ask that right now. And I'm trying my best to put it into words that might fit our context right now. But do we, as the church, understand, as E-Free Lethbridge, do we understand our role in the body of Christ and how we can use our spiritual gifts to advance the kingdom? That's the first part of the question. And then the second part is, where is our urgency to save lost souls and see transformation?
Yeah, I think that's something that we continue, both things that we continue to wrestle with. I'd say personally and corporately, in terms of the gifts in the body of Christ, recognizing that we all have a role to play. This is something that we've talked a fair amount about in our sermon series, not necessarily preaching directly from that passage, but it comes out of our mission and vision statement in terms of Ephesians chapter 4. With the idea that the gifts that were given to the church and the offices that were given to the church in particular, of apostle, prophet, evangelist, teacher, those types of things. I'm missing one, I think. Shepherd, yeah. Pastor, yeah. And those gifts were given to equip God's people for the works of service. And so I think one of the struggles that we face is this idea of, and we see it, I think it does relate to what we're talking about, Levi, in terms of one of the struggles that we face is this kind of professionalization of Christian ministry. Yep. And we'll leave it, we hire professionals to do the ministry, and we show up and on Sunday, and they serve us, and in exchange we support through our finances. And I think sometimes we do the same thing when it comes to sacrifice. This is what I was talking about in the previously, is for me, I can, up to a certain amount anyways, I can write a check, send money to address some of the problems, but engaging those problems personally, that takes a greater amount of sacrifice for me. And I think that's maybe the case for lots of people in our church. And so then we see that also in our ministry. So not just in our engagement of issues or poverty or whatever, we see that in the church culture broadly. I give money, and the professionals handle the ministry, and so that's something that we wrestle with, and we're still trying to address.
Yeah, definitely. And I think like the second question there about urgency, and let me just pull it back up here. Where's our urgency to save lost souls and see transformation? I feel like there's a great deal of urgency that we have been pushing. That's why we're doing these whole community parties and moving towards trying to spur our congregation, our people on to love their neighbor and to make these relationships, because like we're not going to see that happen without the relationship. We're not going to see transformation. And so, yeah, I don't know. That's where I'm standing. I'm like, man, this is what we're doing. Like, this is, I don't know. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I think just getting that, framing the question there, eh? Levi, where's the urgency? Yeah, I agree with you, Levi. I mean, I'm praying myself too that God would just awaken me to some of this stuff as well, right? That He would return to the joy of my salvation has been ringing in my ear for the month of August here. That the Lord would awaken me personally too. So, yeah, we need that urgency. All of us need that urgency, and it's going to take a whole church. That's why we call it the Takes a Village, right? Not just one or two of us. We all need to have that zeal and pray for that zeal.
Yeah, and I think we have some urgency, but I think we need to increase the urgency. And in my own life, I always go back to Paul in Romans chapter 9, where he says, with Christ as my witness, I speak with utter truthfulness. My conscience and the Holy Spirit confirms it. My heart is filled with bitter sorrow and unending grief for my people, my Jewish brothers and sisters. I would be willing to be forever cursed, cut off from Christ, if that would save them. And just his passion for his own people and for the world in this way, that he would even give up his own salvation if he could, to see them be saved. And he recognizes something that we don't talk about a lot, is that people are going to hell if they don't have Jesus Christ as their Savior. Jesus Christ is clear about this throughout the Gospels, that there is an eternity without God waiting for people who don't choose to follow after Jesus. And if they choose not to follow after Jesus, then they choose their own way, and their own way is going to end in destruction. And that needs to motivate me more, because I love the people around me. And that's where this story of this Good Samaritan is a great reminder. But we also need, it's not an optional thing. This is what Jesus calls us to do because of his sacrifice. So my urgency quotient goes up when I meditate on those things, and I fall deeper in love with my neighbors around me, and remember that Christ loves them as much as he loves me.
And not just on the rescuing from hell, although that is a huge motivation, but then on the flip side, that we honestly we have a growing appreciation for what it means to participate in the kingdom. Yeah. And that a life that is in participation with the kingdom, a life that is restored in their relationship with God, is the best thing for somebody. That this is honestly the best thing I could ever want for you, is for you to be in right relationship with God through Jesus Christ. And I think it comes a little bit to our theology. One, we're not totally convinced that people are going to hell, and we're not totally convinced that life in the kingdom is the best.
Yeah, that's good, Jerry. I'm glad you said that.
Yeah.
I think that's only going to come through, as you said, Jeff, through meditation on the word and through prayer, right? This is when the Holy Spirit works in our life. And Yeah. So when we ask, where's the urgency? This should drop us to our knees, not start pointing fingers and yelling at people.
Yeah. No, that's for sure.
Right. Like,
yeah.
And some of that urgency comes from joy too, right? So there's this element of like,
oh man, amen,
making sure that we have, like that we do pray and meditate on the word and understand what God's done for us, but not wait until like, oh, I don't have enough urgency yet, so I better not go out and do this.
Right, sure.
But like when I get an opportunity to point somebody towards Jesus, whatever that looks like, there's a bit of a thrill, there's a bit of a risk, but there's this joy that comes with that as well, whether they come to Jesus or not. If they do, man, that's like, so I can still, like, I don't know about you guys, but I can point to moments in my life where like lights came on in people's eyes because of I got an opportunity to witness about the goodness of the kingdom and the goodness of our King to them. And I can still remember specific instances where that happened. There's a joy in that for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Amen.
For sure.
Well, it's time to move to community time. Community time is something that we do just for this summer, just for this series actually, which is based on community and how we can best do that as a church. Basically, we're pushing community, everything. So I think often when we hear messages like this, we hear it through an individual lens. I have to love God. I have to love my neighbor. I have to witness to the kingdom. I have to lead this person to Jesus. I have to disciple. How can we shift our default lens from individual to community, specifically when it comes to these calls?
I love that, Levi, because even just as you say that, it sounds like so much pressure. It sounds like we're just living in a pressure cooker. You need to have not only the ability, you need to have all these gifts. And I think that goes back to that question again, where it's like, that's not how the church was created to operate, that we need each other because we're all gifted differently. And when we could see it as a we on mission together, it does take off that pressure cooker lens. Because man, just as you're saying it there, I'm like, yes. And I think we hear this a lot. Well, maybe I'll just say I hear this a lot too. Not only, Luke, do you need to do this, you got to do this, you got to do this, you got to do this. And it's like, no, we all have this call. Let's do this together. It certainly takes off the pressure.
Yeah, it all depends on it all depends on you. Then that all of a sudden that gets pretty high. And I think there's a tension there, right? Like we don't just wait. We can't. You talked about pointing fingers or yelling at people or whatever before. Like we can't just be like, oh, I'm going to wait for the church to do this and then I'll get on board. Yeah. There is that personal call for sure. Or I'm going to wait for other people.
Yeah, that's good, Jerry.
There is a personal call. But I think when I recognize that other people are on this journey with me, or that I'm joining in with where the church, not necessarily Free Lethbridge, but the church universal is already engaged and where God is at work, all of a sudden that takes some of that individual pressure off as well.
Yeah. I love the fact that I'm in with this family here together, like the Free family. And we want to encourage each other. We want to, pool our resources together. We want to hold each other's hand and just help each other walk deeper into our relationship with God and reaching out. We can do so much more together than we can separately as individuals, and be encouraged in that, I just love being part of the local church in that way, and just encouraged in that way that it all doesn't rest on my shoulders. Mm-hmm. And that's a great reminder. All the epistles, not all of them, but most of them that Paul wrote were to the church at Corinth, the church at Philippi, the church at Ephesus. You guys are in this together, and remember this community.
Yeah. And even the individual letters, there's good historical evidence that they were probably read in the whole church, right? So like I'm writing to Timothy, but man, everybody's going to listen into this together.
Mm-hmm.
as well. And so I think that's part of our responsibility as pastors and leaders is like, one, that we don't live this mission individualistically, and two, that we speak of it corporately. So here's what we're going to do together. That's one of the reasons we're doing community parties is, we're going to do this together. It's going to be decentralized. You're not going to get everybody together. It's one of the reasons that we're going to pray tomorrow on Monday before kids start school. Again, just like you're not going to the school alone. We're together in this. And so if we can kind of demonstrate that and speak to that, I think that helps us overcome some of that individualism.
Yeah, definitely. I was going to say, like, when we talk about the cost or the sacrifice, and that I love that question. Does it seem like it's too much? Does it cost too much to follow Jesus? And I'd say, like, if you're taking it from an individual lens, most of the time the answer is yes. Like, there is so much if you take it from this, I have to do all these different things. But as soon as you put it towards the church as a universal, we're walking together, we're holding each other up, that cost, I'm not saying that it doesn't cost a lot and that there's no sacrifice. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that is when people like me who have a personality type that need to, like, say yes to everything and try and do the best at, I don't know, I'm very competitive. I need to do the best that I can to prove that I'm worth it to people. And so I take everything on. And when I do that, this cost is actually like way more, and it bogs me down, and it's not possible. I just can't do everything. But when I do it with other people, it just kind of evens it out a little bit. And yeah, that's why I love community. Which leads into the next question. When you guys think of doing this in community with others, does that bring relief or does that cause extra stress, and why? So for me, it brings great relief. Yeah. But I know other people that might bring more stress.
It's like the group project in school, right? Sometimes those were like, if you got a good team, it was great. But sometimes it was just extra stress because you knew you were going to have to do all the work if you wanted a good grade. So, right. Oh, that's funny. Oh, that's good.
Yeah, I think both, Levi.
Yeah.
But again, one is the more biblical approach and the other is not. I mean, and that's where Paul keeps saying, as much as he's giving this call to we, then he keeps reminding people, live at peace with each other, work together. You're in this together. Like, it doesn't mean it's going to be an easy call, but this is the way that the church is designed and should operate. Right. And I think, yeah. What do you got, Neff? What are you smiling at up there, buddy?
Well, I just saying, you know what? Sometimes, you know what? You want to be in partnership with other people, and you want to be on the same page because they're going to lift the burden with you. But then sometimes you're embarrassed about the stuff that those other people do. And so I was thinking about that. Like, sometimes, you know, you would want people to say things about Jesus a little bit differently than they did. Boy, they were kind of harsh when they said that, or boy, they kind of went a little bolder than I would have on that there. And you sort of feel bad about that. And then I was thinking, I probably am that guy to other people sometimes, you know. Man, I wish
you are that man.
Or whatever, you know. We worry about things like that. But, you know, my experience in that is that other people don't see it like that. They don't worry about it as much as we do in this, particularly in our culture that is super sensitive to all the things that you say.
Yeah, definitely. So this parable exposes some of the tribe identity of Jesus' time. Samaritans versus Jews. Reaching across the group divide can feel risky. I mean, for me, it feels very risky. Is there a time where you guys have stepped out of your tribe to bring healing or reconciliation? We lost Jeff. But
we lost Jeff. Yeah, sorry.
We lost Jeff now.
Yeah.
He's coming back.
Mine was I just pushed the wrong button when I was scrolling up on the comments. My cursor kind of went up to the wrong thing there. So I apologize for earlier.
Same thing.
Yeah. So yeah. Yeah, I can think of a time when I was invited to do this. So when I was in high school, we had a man in our church who would go out Sunday afternoons. Oh man, this sounds so sketchy when I start saying it out loud. He'd go out on Sunday afternoons in his van, and we would go pick up kids on the reserve and do Sunday school in the van. And so he would invite me to come and do this with him. And it was not like this was out of my world for sure, probably because we were in a van picking up kids as well. But anyways, so it was out of my world. And he would encourage me sometimes to take some leadership in that and do some Sunday school there or whatever and get to know some of their names. And it was really good for me. But it did feel like it definitely felt like a risk. One, not again, I think the risk of looking like a fool, not so much like from my own tribe, if you want to kind of look at it that way, but like that I might say or do something as a white person that would be foolish to these Indigenous kids, that might offend them unintentionally or whatever. So there's lots of insecurity that went along with that, but yeah, definitely risky. And then I think, today it feels risky to take a position or to reach across to somebody that, my evangelical tribe has kind of placed that there's a divide between. And so it's not so much with people, but maybe a little bit with positions, which are also about people. But, on Facebook or social media, like, should I post this link? Should I comment on this? Because I might be seen as not, kind of outside the tribe. And so that is definitely a risk for me.
Man, Jerry, I was going to go along the same lines with you about risky. It's become more risky today, Levi, it seems like, is picking up hitchhikers. That's just now. Yeah. I just go for it. No, I think you got to be somewhat safe. But I can remember one night, it was late at night, and Ruthie was pregnant, and I was in the Mustang, Jer, driving home. I think it was like not too late, maybe 10 p.m. And anyways, this guy was hitchhiking on a bike he was hitchhiking. It looked like his bike broke down. And anyways, so I pulled over and picked him up. And it was on the highway going to standoff. So anyways, I drove the guy into standoff. And I think just with all these, I was a little nervous just because of all the talk that gets talked about, standoff and reserve. And you got that big sign that says keep out. But anyways, drove the standoff, had a great chat with the guy. And that was, it was worth it. And I think for me, just like what you were saying, Jared, I think not even just listening to the Indigenous people. And that's something I've, learned from going up to Meadow Lake with the young adults, is just sitting and listening to stories. That does a lot. You don't need to have answers. You just need to listen. And I think there's a lot of reconciliation in just being willing to listen and putting yourself out there to listen. So I've had some neat stories with that. And not only driving a standoff, but even driving some guys home in Lethbridge as well. So I don't know if I'd recommend the hitchhiker thing at times, but there's always good stories out of it.
I think one of the important things that this is where learning how to hear the voice of God is integral, because I'm not suggesting that, from some of my illustrations today, that you should, give money to everybody on the side of the street that's
right.
handling, or, you should, as Luke would do, pick up every hitchhiker. I mean, there are just some things that you shouldn't do. But I mean, I felt at this moment in Victoria that God was prompting me, and it's clearer afterwards. But at that moment, I felt God, I want you to step into this right now. And that's where it's key to learn how to hear his voice. And when he prompts you to do something, take a risk, that you say, yeah, okay, God, I'll step into this.
Yeah, definitely. Man, what are some ways we can heal some of the divides that are forming in our society and faith family today?
I think Luke hit on one already, and I think it's a key one is to listen and be willing to ask some questions, right? So rather than just to assume, based on somebody's position or beliefs or whatever, that I know exactly what they're thinking, and kind of go on the offensive to try to persuade them of that my position is right, is probably to ask some questions and to listen. Like, how did you come to this position? And, why does this bring fear to you? Or, those types of things. Why are you so opposed to this stuff? And even like, I remember when the conversion therapy conversation was just started way probably a couple of years ago already. I just, we were struggling with what is meant by this definition of conversion therapy, because the definition that I understood seemed to be much broader the definition that I understood seemed to be narrower than the definition that was being put out there at the time. And so I just went to some people that I respected, that I knew worked with LGBT teens, and just started asking some questions. What does this mean? And what's behind some of these movements and things like that towards the conversion therapy ban? Because I'm against torture and shock therapy and these types of things, but it seems like this is a bigger definition. And so how did we get here? What does conversion therapy actually mean? And just listen, ask kind questions. That went a long way.
Actually, really,
here, Levi.
I love what Luke said about listening. I remember being, I would say, maybe a naive first-year college student in Bible college, and I had an Indigenous girl within our cohort. I guess we were going to call it that. Cohorts is a bad term because now it's confusing with COVID right now, but our class cohort. And I remember debating quite a bit about politics and all this stuff. And if I had just listened, our relationship would have been so different. And I just didn't, I hadn't learned that yet. And fast forward 5-6 years, spending time up in Montreal Lake Cree Nation in Saskatchewan, on the reserve, and learning what listening can do, and not like being so slow to speak.
To James.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it just changes the relationship completely. So I can't speak higher of that.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, being quick to listen and slow to speak. Is that something that Ravi Zacharias said?
Exactly. You're quoting Ravi. Right out of James, but Ravi said it.
Yeah, right. I think a couple of things too as well that really help is like assuming the best of somebody else, and whether they're inside the church or whether they're not. I think that just walking in with that is, this person is intelligent, smart. I like this person, whether you've met them or, whether you know them deeply or not. And the other piece, and I tried to emphasize this a little bit, is, after you get to know somebody's name, then you get to know their story a little bit. If you walk in and get to know somebody's story, like their background, where they grew up, what their family was like, just and get to know some of their context, and they let you into some of their pain, and you share with some of your, that just, you just have all day for somebody and what they think. Once you know their story and you can understand some context in this, and they have all day for you too, if you're willing to listen to their story in that way and share your own and be transparent. So that's good in the church, and that's good for those that we are developing relationships with, in hopes that they find the hope that we have in Jesus.
Amen.
Well, I think that concludes our time together. I feel bad cutting this one off because I feel like I keep talking about this content. Even with the getting to the message part, I had other questions, and I'm like, man, I just want to talk this out. But I know that we will be able to get to it in future weeks, and our time is well over now. So thanks for joining us. A reminder, this is live right now. So if you're listening live, or if you're listening before Monday morning, if you would like to come pray with a staff member for our schools, or if you are going to school, you're a teacher, have kids going to school, a recent graduate, and you would like prayer, you can see which schools we're at, which pastors at that school at that specific time. We're praying for all of the schools. I believe we've hit every school in Lethbridge and in Coaldale. And yeah, if you would like prayer, we'd love to pray with you tomorrow morning. Check out our post on Facebook or Instagram to see what time slot we will be there. Join us. And if you just like to pray for the school, join us. Even if you've never gone to a school in Lethbridge, join us. We'd love that. Yeah. All right. Well, we'll see you guys again next week. Thanks for joining us. Have a great week.
See you, everybody.